September 1939, France mobilizes. The 6 operational Char 2Cs reactivate. They are not sent to the front, not positioned near the Maginot Line, kept in reserve near Verdun, carefully maintained, carefully hidden from anything that might damage them. The French High Command's position was brutally logical. If one was captured intact or visibly destroyed, the propaganda damage would be catastrophic. So, the largest tanks in the world in active service in a country at war were parked safely away from the war. For 9 months from September 1939 to May 1940, the Char 2Cs sat at Verdun. And then the Germans came, May 10th, 1940. Germany launches the invasion of France. Within days, the panzers have broken through at Sedan. On June 10th, with German armor sweeping behind French lines, the order comes: move the Char 2Cs south by rail, load them onto their specialist flatcars and get them out. The operation begins. And immediately the fundamental problem reasserts itself. A 69-ton vehicle requiring specialist transport moves at the speed those requirements impose, which is very slowly. June 12th, 2 of the 6 break down before reaching loading points. Number 92, Picardy fails at Pienne due to an electrical fault. Its crew destroys it the next day. A second fails at Mainville and is similarly destroyed. 4 tanks remain. June 15th, approximately 15 kilometers south of Neufchâteau, near the Meuse-sur-Meuse station, the train stops. Ahead, a burning fuel convoy has blocked the track. It cannot be cleared in time. German forces are closing. The crews of the 4 remaining Char 2Cs receive the order. They rig demolition charges, set the detonators, and walk away. 3 of the 4 charges detonate as planned. The 4th, vehicle number 99, Champagne, fails to fire. Champagne is found by German forces intact, loaded onto German transport, and taken to Berlin, painted on its side, Erbeutet Panzer Regiment 10, captured by Panzer, Regiment 10. Goebbels and Goering looked at France's most famous military symbol and understood immediately what they had. Goebbels and Goering looked at Champagne and understood immediately. They did not report it had been abandoned because of a blocked fuel train. They claimed German dive bombers had destroyed it. Newsreels were made. The propaganda machine France had built around the Char 2C for 19 years was dismantled in one afternoon and rebuilt in German. The lie worked. Many sources repeated the dive bomber story for decades. In 1945, Soviet forces entered Berlin. Champagne disappeared. Kubinka Museum or scrapped. The Soviet archives never confirmed. The last surviving Char 2C has no confirmed grave. The Char 2C's technical legacy outweighs its combat record, which was 0. The 2-turret layout, electrical transmission, multi-compartment crew arrangement became reference points for every tank designer of the 1920s and 1930s. The British A1E1 Independent drew directly from Char 2C thinking. The Soviet T-35, a 5-turreted land battleship that became its own propaganda symbol, descended from the same line. Every multi-turreted super heavy of the interwar period was a response to what the Char 2C proved was possible. And also, what it proved was a dead end. The German Maus, 188 tons, never left Germany. The British Tortoise, 78 tons, 4 miles per hour cross-country. The Char 2C at 69 tons was not a tank by the standards of its era. It was a land battleship conceived by naval architects, operated by a crew large enough for a small warship, moved by national railway infrastructure rather than its own mobility. That category, the land battleship, died with the Char 2C. Every lesson it taught about the impossibility of combining extreme protection, extreme firepower, and tactical mobility in one hull was learned at enormous cost by every major power that tried. France, June 15th, 1940. A railway siding near the Meuse River. 6 of the largest fighting machines ever built, sitting on flatcars, going nowhere. Track ahead, blocked by a burning fuel train. German armor closing from the north. The crews climb out. They are not going to fight. They rig the charges and walk away. One by one, the detonations blow. The largest tanks ever to enter operational service, 69 tons each, 13 meters long, 19 years in service, die on a railway siding without firing a single shot in anger. Their names: Provence, Picardy, Alsace, Bretagne, Anjou, Berry. This is how France's greatest weapon ended. Before this video ends, you will understand why France built a tank so large it needed its own specially reinforced railway cars to move. Why the French military spent the 1930s using it in propaganda films rather than deploying it. And why, when Germany captured the one surviving example and took it to Berlin, the tank disappeared in 1945 and has never been seen again. But here is the detail nobody mentions. The Char 2C was not a failure of engineering. It was a perfect machine built for a war that ended before it arrived, and then kept alive for 2 decades because no one had the courage to admit it was already dead. To understand the Char 2C, you need to understand the Western Front in 1916. The stalemate had killed millions. The British introduced the first tank at the Somme, riveted steel that crossed trenches and terrified infantry. French planners watched and wanted something bigger. Not slightly bigger, enormously, catastrophically bigger. The specification went to a naval shipbuilder because no land manufacturer had the capacity, calling for a machine that could cross any trench, absorb any shell, and reduce a fortified position to rubble in a single pass. What the shipbuilders delivered made every other tank on Earth look like a toy. The Char 2C, 10.27 meters long without its tail, over 12 meters with it, 4 meters tall, 69 tons, 2 engines, 2 turrets, 4 machine guns, 12 crew. The main turret housed 3 men accessed by ladder, seats suspended from the turret roof. Each track powered by its own 200 horsepower engine through electrical transmission, a system that would not become standard for another 50 years. Top speed, 15 kilometers per hour. And here is the detail that explains everything. The tank cost 20 times as much to build as a standard FT-17 light tank. The military value was never the point. The war ended November 1918. The program continued. 10 vehicles delivered in 1921, assigned to the 51st Battalion near Verdun. And there they stayed for 19 years because the honest answer was uncomfortable. Too slow, too wide, too tall, too heavy for every bridge and road in Europe, too expensive to deploy in numbers that mattered. The French military knew all of this. They made the decision militaries have always made when faced with a prestigious but useless weapon. They turned it into a symbol. Through the 1920s and 1930s, the Char 2C became France's most famous military asset. On film, not the battlefield. Propaganda newsreels showed the tanks climbing fortifications, towering over small men placed beside them for scale. Each was given a name from ancient France: Poitou, Provence, Picardy, Alsace, Bretagne, Touraine, Anjou, Normandy, Berry, Champagne. The public believed. Press reports used numbers bearing no resemblance to actual specifications. By the mid-1930s, the Char 2C was invincible in French popular imagination, and the military let that lie stand, because the lie was more valuable than the tank. What the propaganda concealed: by 1935, the Char 2C was catastrophically obsolete, armor vulnerable to every anti-tank gun in service, speed less than half of German tanks, mechanical complexity had become a nightmare. Vehicles broke down simply from their own weight grinding over 19 years. Of 10 vehicles, only 6 were operational in September 1939. 4 quietly scrapped, decommissioned, cannibalized. The invincible supertank had a 60% readiness rate before a single German shell was fired. One, Char 2C survives with certainty. The turret of number 95 Touraine is preserved at the Musée des Blindes at Saumur in France. Just the turret, the 3-man fighting compartment that crew accessed by ladder, that sat 4 meters above the ground, that housed the 75mm gun that never fired at an enemy. The rest of the vehicle is gone. At Saumur, you can stand beside it and understand in physical terms what the Char 2C actually was. It is enormous. It is absurd. It is magnificent in the way that only things built without compromise can be magnificent. And it achieved nothing except its own existence, which it turns out is sometimes enough. Here is where we are. France built the largest tank ever to enter operational service. It arrived after the war it was designed for had ended. It spent 19 years as a propaganda symbol. When the actual war arrived, it broke down, was abandoned on a railway siding, and blown up by its own crew. The one that survived was captured, used as enemy propaganda, and disappeared. Nobody knows where it is. The largest tank in history has no grave, no confirmed ending, no final resting place. It exists somewhere between fact and myth, which is exactly where it always existed. Subscribe. Next week, we cover the vehicle that tried to learn from all of this and still got it completely wrong.